Okay, for this section we're going to be looking at the eye and the cheekbone area. I'm going to be using a drawing pencil, which is a non-soluble colour pencil, and just two colours with the graphitint, which I'll probably do in the middle of this somewhere. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to work through exactly the same way as I would have produced this as the original piece and the building up of the colours. Right, so initially we've got the reference next to us here, so it's quite straightforward, kind of looking at that and working out what's happening. But what I'm going to do initially is just put down a base colour. Now, generally speaking, when you look at a piece of reference like this, you've got the lightest colour on the image, which is generally your base colour. I'm using the wheat for this purpose, and I'm not putting lots of it on. I'm just colouring a sort of section at a time. A lot of the pieces that I produce kind of grow. I start off with a section and it kind of develops and grows as I go along. The other thing to remember as well with the Derwent drawing pencil is if you do make a catastrophic mistake, to a certain degree you can actually rub out the area just using your eraser. And we've got ruby earth and sanguine. If you look at some of the old masters, a lot of the kind of Da Vinci drawings and things like that were done using sanguine as a pigment. It's a fantastic colour, and probably the best one I think in the Derwent drawing range. And as you can see so far, I'm not really getting too bogged down with detail yet. I'm just throwing down base colours. Now, this technique that I'm using now, where you're layering a light colour pencil on top of a darker colour pencil, is a burnishing technique. You're actually blending a colour together with another colour. Do I use a cross-hatching technique? Do I go in any particular direction with my pencil marks? Not really. I just sort of move it around and, refer back to the reference until what I've got on here starts to resemble what I see on there. This is chocolate that I'm using now, so this is just to sort of indicate this kind of dark edge. And as you would with oil painting, I do this a lot. You slightly go over your line, and then you go back the other way again. So you don't have a definite edge really. You just kind of. Now what's happening here, which happened on the original, which I mean this is the second time round for me, but on the original image, I started to get these little interesting areas of colour coming up. Which look like broken capillaries. When you look at somebody that's, not disrespect to this lady, but at this kind of age, you've got broken capillaries and things in the face. How do you draw something like that? Well, you don't. The best thing to do is just let the material kind of do its own thing. And if you see something interesting happen like it's happening there, just leave it. Just work with it. If you've got a dark area, I mean, we've got a section here around the nose that's kind of a mixture between the two. You've got kind of dark, but some colour coming through. So what I'm going to do is put this ruby earth down here as a kind of base colour. And then I'm going to work the chocolate on top. Because around this section, we're going to have detail around the eyes, the kind of wrinkles, if you will, around the eyes. Now this section here is a little bit overworked, as you can see. That I just want to take some of this colour out. Now you can do this at any stage. I tend to cut my rubbers up, really, cut my erasers up, and use small sections because it gives me a nice edge, which allows me to pull out detail a lot better. I'm going to get this dark around the eyes blocked in, just so I know where I'm going with this area. I'm just going to use chocolate straight on this part. Now where I'm coming up to this bit of detail on the nose, I want the edge to finish with the sanguine, so I'm just going to work this sanguine colour there. Now here you've got the beginnings of a kind of deep wrinkle on the top of the nose. And I start working initially sanguine again, and then the chocolate around that. I'm just going to blend it, this particular bit, just using the white. So we're starting to get some of the structure around the eye now. Okay, I'm coming up to doing the eyebrow now, and you're going to think I'm crazy doing this, but paintbrush is a tool like anything else. I use mine for, or some of them, preferably older ones, for indenting the surface, and all I've done is just sharpen the end of this paintbrush to a point, just the same way as you would a pencil. You can use a pencil sharpener actually for this, or a blade. And I'm just going to, what I've done, I've just put a little bit of colour underneath so that this doesn't come through white, and I'm just going to indent the surface a little bit, just odd marks, because I want an occasional white line to come through. So when I take the chocolate now and run it through here, you should be able to see on here the beginnings of little bits of eyebrow coming through, which, you know, if you'd have tried to draw that in terms of a bit of detail, it would be an absolute nightmare. And if you tried to put that in afterwards, it would be quite difficult as well, because even though you can layer these colours quite well, it's easier for it to just skip over. It works the same kind of way as a brass rubbing, really. You know, it's because you've got a dent in the surface, it just won't go into that part. And if for some reason you make a mark where, you know, you don't want that texture technique to come through, you can, using the point of your pencil, just colour it out so you don't see it. Mars Violet, Sanguine and Chocolate I'm using here at the moment. Coming into the top of the eye. Now I've not done this yet, but I do sort of, it depends how I feel, but you can move colours around, you know, just using your finger sometimes. If you've got something that's, you know, you just want to sort of pull a bit of colour across, you should try that. It's, or a blending tool of some description. Okay, now we've got a shadow area here. Again, it's a crease on the eye, and then you've got the actual inside of the eye again, here. Because drawing pencils are quite a soft colour pencil, as colour pencils go. If you've used colour pencils before, other brands or Derwent Studio or, you know, a harder colour pencil, then you probably find these a lot different because of the, you know, the fact that they're so soft has some real advantages, but also can make it a little bit tricky for detail. It's got a little bit dirty there. I'm just going to pull out some of that colour. And I'm using the bit of yellow ochre now in this section. I'm resisting black for now. I might just use a little bit on top of the chocolate in some of the areas in a little while, but not at the moment. I just want to enclose this area. On the reference material you can see this area is quite dark, so I'm just going to take this chocolate and the Mars Violet. Just as I did on my sketchbook when I was showing you that little section, what you're doing is you're adding colours and blending them on the surface. You know, if you just use one colour in a section like that, I mean, I've actually used 3-4 colours there. It would look quite flat. You wouldn't get the same kind of depth, really. This is a ruby earth. As you can see here, I don't know if you can pick this out on the video, but you've got light hitting this. This is not completely dark. I'm just going to use a touch of black now, just to sort of on top of these colours, just to sort of set the darkness of this section. You've got the creases coming in now, the side of the face, and there's actually, looks like a mole or something on the face here, which I thought was really interesting on the original reference material, so I'm going to keep with that. Maybe I'm a bit too honest for doing portraiture, but it's all about the detail. Now, an area like that, you know, you could try drawing it, but I think it's easier just to sort of, you know, throw colour in and start just playing around. What I'm doing here is just actually making drawn marks. So, you know, where you've got a crease going sort of that way, and then you've got little creases going the opposite way on the face, I'm just literally drawing them in. Now, because I've put a base coat down of wheat with a touch of Mars Violet on top, and then I blended it back into itself again with more wheat, when I actually work on here with detail, it just sort of sits nice and fine. And then what I'm going to do here, I'll just show you a technique. I accidentally came across this particular technique when I was creating the original. I just kind of scribbled as I'm doing here, and then I'm going to use the white actually for this section. Work the white on top, and as we're down there, it kind of leaves very, very fine, what look like the broken sort of capillaries on the face. You know, if you want to blend in an area but you want a warm tone, then use a light which has a warm tone like the light sienna. If you want to blend in but cool it down, then the Soloway blue. But all four of these colours, the wheat, Soloway blue, Chinese white and light sienna, are really good for blending in. What I'm going to do is just this section here now, I'm just going to create the background colour. It's quite a dark section of the cheek, which will really lift this part. So even though I'm working on top now with the black, what I'm doing is I'm just going to sort of scribble rather than fill the whole thing in. And then as I come across here with the image, as I'm finishing this, it will be a combination of these three colours. So you've got the ruby earth, touch of chocolate, and then finish with the black, so that you've got a nice dark shadow, but it's not dead. It's not just a flat black. It's a mixture. Now I'm going to work this ruby earth now into this bottom section of the cheek, because now I've actually got to a point where there's enough colour on there. It's about the detail. Now, you see how you're picking that up? You're getting like little bits of texture coming through. It's partly the pressure of the pencil initially when I drew the first couple of colours, but it's quite an interesting effect and exactly what you want for the skin texture. This section here is a little bit too dark, but again, just using your eraser, you can, nice sharp edge, you can go in there and just pull out some of that colour. I really like lifting out with an eraser because it creates effects in itself. It can. Actually, I'm trying to find the right colour here now. So I just want to touch a sanguine. That's it. That's the one. And then I just want to get rid of that hard edge. There. And then just ever so slightly, just finish that little bit with a bit of white. Okay, now we're going to look at the eye section of the image, and what I'm going to do is use graphitint for the coloured section of the image, because what I want to happen here, I want the eye to look as if it's a different surface texture to the skin. And by using a soluble material for the colour of the eye, I think it will just distinguish it slightly. Now with the graphitint pencil, the easiest way to use them, I've got the meadow green and the autumn brown. The reason I've used the meadow green and autumn brown is just so there's a bit more contrast in terms of the colours that I'm using on the eye. Everything on the face is kind of sepia tone, so if I just use the autumn brown in here, it will just kind of blend in with everything else. So just by adding a touch of green, because if you look at somebody's eye anyway, there's lots of colours in there. And what I'm doing here basically is just using a wet brush straight into the colours that you can see here, and you could do one or two things. You can either lift it and put it into a palette, or work straight onto the piece. So a combination of the two. It's only a small area, so really I just want them to sort of bleed together on the surface. More green than the autumn brown, really. While that's drying, I'm going to continue with the detail around the eye. So we've got the sanguine, and Mars violet again. Before I go any further with the rest of the outside area, I just want to make sure that this is right. So I'm going to start off just finding that sort of outer edge. Okay. The only really delicate part of the whole image, to be honest. I would say this is the only section on the whole image that you really need to be careful with and just take your time, because you know, rubbing out and reapplying wouldn't work as well as it would anywhere else in this section. Kind of feeling my way across this section because I'm not 100% sure how I want this bit to finish. It's not going to be identical to what's going on the original reference. In fact, here, if you look, is a touch of light under the eyebrow, which I've missed. And I just want to warm that up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is put a touch of yellow ochre down as a base colour, a section that I've just rubbed out, and then over the top of that with a sanguine. I'm going to get really aggressive now with this white. I'll really press on some of these areas. As you work through the piece, obviously, as I said before, there are going to be parts that you want to rework, you just want to add more colour. You know, there is a real temptation to sort of to faff, which I'm good at, and you know, but you need to get a balance before you do that. You need to sort of create more of the image before you get too involved with that again. But that's that section pretty much there. Nice to do it again, really.